Minnesota is doubling down and therefore digging themselves into a bigger hole that thankfully we get to make fun of here on this show. Also, Mamdani, the mayor-elect of New York City, might be telling people how to avoid arrest. In other words, aiding and abetting criminals. And in good news, the culmination, the conclusion of the veteran 88-year-old who's working every single day at Bombas, he got his check. It is for a large sum. We've got the video to show you here to warm your hearts, especially during this Christmas season. All that and more coming up on this episode of Turning Point Tonight. My name is Joe Bob. Thanks so much for tuning in. Together, we are charting the course of America's cultural comeback. This is Turning Point Tonight. TPT@tpusa.com is the email address if you'd like to send along your thoughts, comments, concerns, even criticisms of the show. That is okay. They are welcome at the Turning Point Tonight inbox, TPT@tpusa.com. Our mailbag segment is later on in the show. If you'd like a chance to be read, make sure your email is disgusting, hateful, bigoted, all of the things. And actually, you get a better chance of getting your email read in our mailbag segment. Also, go subscribe to our Turning Point Tonight YouTube channel, which is growing by leaps and bounds all across social media. The hack is Joe Bob, objectively a weird name. One grandparent was Joe, the other one was Bob. My parents smashed them together. That's how you have the brown guy with the hillbilly Alabama backwoods name. But if you just type in J-O-B-O-B pretty much anywhere, you'll be able to find myself as well as all of the online Turning Point Tonight exclusive internet content. So go and do that now. Interestingly enough, Elon Musk retweeted one of the videos that we did here on this show together. Thankfully, the top dogs are watching, but you can only find that stuff on social media. So go type in J-O-B-O-B to any of your social media accounts. You'll be able to find anything and everything Turning Point Tonight related. I regret to inform you, ladies and gentlemen, that tonight we will be continuing our barrage on those idiots in Minnesota who keep digging themselves into a bigger and bigger hole. We've got a lot coming out of the great state of Minnesota, in which Governor Tim Walz, his daughter is now taken to the internet. We're going to make fun of her in just a little bit. A Washington congresswoman is weighing in on Minnesota, which says some things that are outlandishly untrue. But first, we'd like to start off with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who we have hit numerous times here on this show. But unfortunately for her, she went on some of these Sunday talk shows and gave us some more comedic fodder. In her world, she's being very, very serious about this. But again, it is ridiculous because it's coming out of her mouth. Let's start off with this clip from Face the Nation, where Congresswoman Omar is making a fool of herself yet again. Cut 6.
I want to ask you about something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said. On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me, yes, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany. And, you know, as we know, there have been many immigrants who've tried to come to the United States who've turned back, one of them being Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were described who were coming from Ireland, Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, you know, we're yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans. Yeah. We are citizens. We are productive part of this nation, and we will continue to be.
So if you'll notice, one very important thing here that Ms. Omar didn't mention is the fact that she didn't refute the claim. Stephen Miller said, hey, there's no magical thing that happens when you cross a border of a country. You don't all of a sudden become the thing that, well, we want here in America. You still have all of the customs and cultural values of the failed state. You're just geographically in a different place. People need to be able to assimilate in order to be considered Americans and part of the American experiment. Ilhan Omar does not say, well, that's not true. She says, as a matter of fact, well, no, we are here and we are staying. She says a couple other things we'll get to in just a quick second, but aren't you going to refute the claim? if the claim is being made, hey, people who come to this country aren't assimilating and that's the problem, you should probably refute that fact if you in fact agree. But the fact that she doesn't say, no, we are assimilating, kind of leads you to the whole point, basically, that Stephen Miller's premise is accurate. People coming to this country aren't assimilating, and that's the problem. And Congresswoman Omar does not try to even rebut that. She just says, yeah, we're coming to this country. We are doing whatever it is that we want to do, and we're gaining political power in Minneapolis, and that's how we're going to do things. She also made a claim there that was also pretty funny. They are productive members of society. President Trump says that about 88% of Somalis and Somali-born families are on the government dole, the welfare system. If those numbers are even close to accurate, I wouldn't call that being a productive member of a society that you want to help improve. That's the whole thing. And we're just talking about broadly speaking, not talking about individual Somalis as their individual selves. Even then, you could probably point to the fact that, well, a bunch of them got convicted of fraud, so there's that whole thing. But not only that, they're not even talking about the billions of dollars that they stole from the taxpayers in Minnesota. So, broadly speaking, what is happening here is, one, she doesn't refute the claim, and two, doesn't say, yeah, by the way, we know that this is a big problem. Her explanation is that, the fraud happened because a bunch of these COVID things were set up very hastily without the proper parameters or guidelines to stop rampant fraud. Oh, okay. So then what are we saying here? Are we all agreeing here that people coming into the country who don't share the customs and values of this nation are just stealing, and that's just fine? Okay, cool. Great. Thank you for that, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. But it goes further. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal of Washington State also weighed in to the immigration discussion going on entirely on the left of how this is great. America was built on the backs of immigrants, which isn't really true, and we don't need to dive in entirely to that. But she makes a claim that is ridiculous and hilarious all at the same time. Play this cut 7.
The majority of Americans across the country, regardless of political party, know that immigrants from all over the world, Somalia, India, wherever they're from, Latin America, Africa, that immigrants have built this country and make this country what it is today.
Yes, Somali immigrants have built the United States of America. Don't pay attention to the fact that they really only started coming here en masse in the 90s. But since the 90s, Somali immigrants have built this great nation that has existed for 250 years. But becoming in the 90s, that is when they decided they were going to turn this ship around. America was just this wretched, completely just horrible place until the Somalis got here in the 90s, and they built America, which is hilarious, so to speak. Just to give you some historical context here, I thought this was interesting. In 1991, the Somali government completely fell apart, sparked an entire civil war, which caused nearly 1 million Somalis to flee the country. Now, there's a whole separate conversation that can be happening here. Is probably a 3-hour-long podcast that someone can do. Maybe we'll do it eventually. But the point of people leaving the country rather than fighting for the country is a whole thing to be discussed in and of itself. If the United States, were to ever have an internal conflict, you would hope that the people who are fighting for the American ideal and the American experiment to continue wouldn't just up and leave and go somewhere else. That's what libs do. And the countries that libs are fleeing to, if they are fleeing to those countries, don't want them. And in the case of Ellen DeGeneres, like we saw last week, they want to come back pretty immediately. Up until the 90s, about 1990, there was only about 2,500 Somalis in the country as a whole. Now, since then, there's been about 170,000 people of Somali ancestry or people that have come over from Somalia. And yet, Congressman Jayapal says, well, they built the country. Okay, good luck getting that one over on she unfortunately might get it over on her very, very dumb constituents who think that makes sense. So Somalis built America starting in 1990. The rest of that was just, winning 2 world wars, the fantastic economic engine that the United States built, the ideals and the moral values that the Constitution outlined, all of those things were completely bunk until the Somalis got here around the 90s. And great. Thank you for that. But speaking of Minnesota, it doesn't stop there. Hope Walz, Governor Tim Walz's daughter, has weighed in. I know all of you were waiting for this. Thank you that the daughter of a governor has weighed in on the slurs being thrown around to her dad and the people that run the state that let $1 billion get stolen. What does she have to say? What does she have to say about the rampant fraud being led by a particular group of people who don't like this country and allowed by the government that her dad heads up? Watch this. Cut 8. This is the daughter of Minnesota's governor.
No, I'm talking about this because while my family and I are always going to be the bigger people, the president calling my dad what he did has unleashed a storm regarding offensive language towards me and my family. Say what you want about my dad. He's an elected official, right? That's going to happen. I think it's utterly disgraceful that the president would do that. But then the attacks that I have seen, I have people DMing me saying absolutely horrendous things. When I was home last week, somebody drove by and screamed that we were R words, just driving by in their car.
Now, she is building upon the fact that her dad, Governor Tim Walz, said last week in a statement, people are driving by his house, yelling the R word at the governor's mansion there in Minnesota. And to be honest with you, I might take some flack for this. You guys might not like that I'm going to say this. I do think that needs to stop. Mostly because of the traffic that it's causing. People are lined up around the block over there in Minnesota, just waiting their turn in line to yell slurs, not racial slurs, to yell slurs and epithets at the governor's mansion, and it's causing an enormous backlog of traffic. People are late to work. People who have to go to the bathroom, who are rushing home to try and use their own toilet, can't because they have to stop on the side of the road because there's just a line circling the entire city of Minnesota for people waiting for their chance to yell a slur at the governor. I'm sorry, I can't get through this. That's why I think it needs to stop, because traffic is getting out of control. It's because those people in Minnesota have shunned Jesus and don't celebrate Christmas. All of those people that were in line used to be in line to see Christmas lights in their various neighborhoods. And since, the godless hellhole that has become of Minneapolis specifically, I'm not talking about the outskirts of Minnesota. There's actually a lot of great people outside of the very, very heavily populated urban areas who do celebrate Christmas and have their Christmas lights up. But in the urban populated centers, no Christmas lights, and therefore people have diverted their getting together in cars and waiting in lines, not to look at Christmas lights, but instead to to scream slurs at the governor. So that's why I think it needs to stop. And more specifically, and lastly on this point of Minneapolis, this video is circling around. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at my own jokes. There's a bunch of people that email the show, tpt@tpusa.com if you'd like to email the show, that say, hey, stop laughing at your own things. I'm sorry, it's just too funny. And this is also too funny. Video has been circling around the internet of Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, who's trying to continue to be embraced by the Somali community because those are the people that got him elected effectively. And he is here at a Somali restaurant trying to choke down what apparently is just god-awful Somali food. I don't know. There's a totem pole of list of things that people prioritize, and people first of all say, well, people from other third world countries make the United States greater because of their attributes. A bunch of them turns out to be on welfare. Oh, no. Well, they need our help. That's why we should have people in the country. Okay, it's not actually helping, and it's really actually diminishing their country. And then the last thing on the totem pole is, well, at least they have good food. And in some cases, that is true. But we don't need, 100,000 people to get the food. You can do it with a couple. But even that being said, turns out Somali food is not good. And that is according to the face of the Minneapolis mayor who's trying desperately to pretend that he really, really likes what he's enjoying. I want you to watch this. Watch the spoon movements. You know when like you're a toddler and you're trying to like convince your parents that you've eaten more broccoli than you actually have, and the broccoli on your plate is kind of taking up its quarter of the plate, and you kind of scoot it over to sides to blend into the mashed potatoes. You haven't actually eaten any broccoli. You've got some spoon movements. Watch the spoon movements here of Mayor Jacob Frey as he pretends to really, really like what appears to be god-awful food. Cut an eye. No bites were taken in the making of this video. Just trying to yeah, look. Really good. Also, who's that guy next to him who's just smiling ear to ear? That's fun. Thank you, Mayor Frey, for that that vote of confidence. That at least, even though, you know, kind of taking from the welfare system, not actually contributing, not assimilating, but at least the food is also terrible. Again, according to him, or at least his facial expression. That's probably enough of beating up on the good people of Minnesota. We do get a ton of emails, tpt@tpusa.com, of people who live in Minnesota but are not in the metropolitan areas. Nobody's talking about you folks. Do the best you can to try and elect a decent governor next time around. I think Mike Lindell filed paperwork. I'm not entirely sure if I'm not sure if he filed, but I know he pulled papers. So that actually could be really interesting for you good folks in Minnesota. But coming up, we got Mamdani, the mayor-elect of New York City, who's effectively telling criminals, hey, here's how you avoid getting arrested by ICE, specifically, and telling people to keep their cool, which is hilarious. And we got some videos to show you there. Also, there's a wild, absolutely wild story out of Portland, Oregon, in which a jury acquitted somebody of a heinous crime because the victim may have said something inappropriate after the crime. Holy cow, that story is unbelievable. We'll bring that to you, as well as the conclusion to the fantastic story of a bunch of Americans raising money for an American veteran. That video, a bunch of you sent us an email to get the link to help donate to this cause. The final video is out of Ed Bombas, American veteran, being presented with a massive check. It is heartwarming. It is fantastic. You're not going to want to miss that. tbt@tpusa.com is the email address. Send us along your thoughts. We will be right back after the break. Don't go away.
Realize if we just took every gun that currently exists and melted it, and then we never made any more, no one would ever get shot to death again. And I feel that, but that's so childish, and I know I can hear the right-wing response to that, where they're like, well, that's impossible. And I'm like, but the thing is, it's so deeply possible.
It's so possible.
Okay. Is there really a response that needs to be said to that? Hey, if we got rid of all of the guns, then nobody would ever have guns ever again. And like, I don't know who these people are, but then the co-host of the podcast just nodding along, yeah, we should totally do that. What if we, hold on. What if we take it a step further past guns and say, let's make murder illegal? Oh, nobody would ever get murdered again. God, I'm pretty good at this. Maybe I'll go be a left-wing podcaster. If this is what it takes, it sounds pretty easy. Speaking of people and laws, the mayor-elect of New York City, one Zohran Mamdani. I'm trying to get the correct amount of throat in the pronunciation of the name. Put out a video over the weekend or late last week talking about, hey, here's how you can avoid getting arrested and deported from this country. Now, there's several things to point out in this video, so I want to play it. We cut it down just a little bit because it was quite long, but I want to point out several things that he says that, conflate verbiage, which libs do consistently over and over again to confuse everybody, and then get to the point of, well, is this aiding and abetting criminals? I'm not sure. Let you be the judge of that. tpt@tpusa.com if you have any emails, thoughts about this. Watch this video from the mayor-elect of the largest city in the country talking about how people can avoid arrest. This is cut 10.
Last weekend, ICE attempted to raid Canal Street and detain our immigrant neighbors. As mayor, I'll protect the rights of every single New Yorker, and that includes the more than 3 million immigrants who call this city their home. But we can all stand up to ICE if you know your rights.
ICE is legally allowed to lie to you, but you have the right to remain silent.
If you're being detained, you may always ask, "Am I free to go?" repeatedly until they answer you.
You are legally allowed to film ICE, as long as you do not interfere with an arrest.
It is important to remain calm during any interaction with ICE or law enforcement. Do not impede their investigation, resist arrest, or run. New York will always welcome immigrants, and I will fight each and every day to protect, support, and celebrate our immigrant brothers and sisters.
All right, first things first, right off the bat, the use of the term immigrants instead of differentiating people who came to the country legally and then the people who came to the country illegally. We are having a massive discussion in this country whether or not people who even used the quote-unquote legal process or tried to get asylum or quote-unquote refugees are beneficial to the makeup of the American experiment. And that's what we're having the conversation about. This guy, though, is saying, immigrants, all of them are the same. Coming here legally, illegally, all of those things, that's totally fine. They're the same exact thing. No, Zohran, I don't know why we need to continue explaining this to our lib friends. This is not the same thing. You have to differentiate between legal and illegal immigrants. And if people are here illegally, well, they've broken the law. And guess what? If somebody is breaking the law, they are by default a criminal. And if you're trying to create a video, an atmosphere, a culture of people who are breaking the law and saying, okay, here's how you can get away with that. At what point is that aiding and abetting criminals? I would venture to guess it's probably pretty close to now. He goes on to talk about, here's the documentation that they need to have in order to be able to arrest you, which it can kind of get very, very confusing. What I think is ultimately going to happen here is he's going to put people in a very dangerous situation. Last week, we had a video from ABC of a lady getting pulled out of her car screaming, "I'm a citizen!" And the reality is, if she didn't watch so much cable news or garbage on the internet, it would have been a very peaceful stop. ABC News and David Muir was very much in the pocket of, well, this is clearly a bad thing. No, she overreacted to the arrest. And guess what? Videos like this from the mayor of the largest city in the country are only going to cause that sort of thing to increase. If you tell people, by the way, you can't, all of these things need to be in order when people come to arrest you. If you're an American citizen, you don't have anything to worry about at this point in time. There is talk about denaturalizing some folks who are a burden to the society, but that's different conversation for a different time. This sort of thing is going to have worse outcomes for people who should have nothing to worry about. And again, we can discuss all of the naturalization stuff at a later point in time, but that's what these videos are going to do. We did leave a cut in there, or a part of that, where he says, by the way, don't resist and make sure you follow all of the things that you're being told if you actually have a warrant. I would almost guarantee you that he did not want that put in there, but instead was convinced by his attorneys, hey, dude, this this is already pretty close to the line of aiding and abetting criminals, which is a crime in and of itself. Maybe let's throw in this minor caveat towards the end of the video that we played for you because trying to be honest here. Yeah, that probably should remain in there, says Zohran's attorneys, in order to make sure that he can skirt around that legal conundrum. But the last thing he said there, which I thought was funny and ironic, was, at the very least, remain calm. Can't remember specifically exactly what he said, but he did say, remain calm if this is happening to you. In other news, Zohran Mamdani, when he was the candidate for the city mayor of New York City, exemplified what it looks like to remain calm when he confronted Tom Homan, who in the longer form of this video is just walking through the halls eating an apple, just unbothered by these screaming cretins that are just yelling at him. But here's an example of what remaining calm looks like according to Mamdani. Cut 11. Serene, calmness, peace, tranquility. That's what I saw in that video, at least. A guy who looks like a lunatic off his meds having to be held back by what looks like a state trooper from attacking. I don't know what was going to happen there. Like if that guy, if the law enforcement official wasn't blocking Zohran from getting to Tom Homan, what would he have done? I don't know. It seems like kind of a weird tack to take. But again, Zohran says, if you encounter ICE, make sure you remain calm, just as I have done when I encountered the guy who's running ICE. Hilarious and also scary, to say the least. Speaking of scary, a story coming up that'll blow your mind in the idiocy and craziness, even within the context of the judicial system. A story out of Portland. I will say, well, I don't want to say it'll shock you because it won't actually shock you, but it is concerning to say the least. tpt@tpusa.com is the email address. Also, after that, we've got a heartwarming story. Some good news. Minimal amount of good news is always good. That'll come up later on the show. But tpt@tpusa.com. Send along your thoughts, comments, concerns, even criticisms of the show. We accept all opinions, even if they're wrong. Also, go subscribe to our Turning Point Tonight YouTube channel, which is growing by leaps and bounds. You don't want to be the last person on the Turning Point Tonight YouTube channel or Rumble channel or X or Facebook or any of the social media platforms that we go to. The hack is Joe Bob. Definitely weird name. I can totally understand that, but it's advantageous. You can just type in JOBOB pretty much anywhere. You'll be able to find all of the online exclusive content from Turning Point Tonight. We do an extra segment of the show each and every day, which is more of just kind of a musings of like going around living life and applying conservative principles to that lifestyle, which is always kind of fun. You can only get that on our Turning Point Tonight YouTube channel, Facebook, X, social media, any social media account. Just type in JOBOB. You'll be able to find it. We'll be right back after the break. Don't go away. That video probably makes a ton of sense in what I believe is the woke capital of America, Portland, Oregon. I'm going to set up a story for you that I'm going to throw a twist in it. And then even after we reveal the twist, there's going to be even more twists because it's a very twisty thing to have happen. Let's just set up this story. Imagine, if you will, excuse me, imagine a white guy goes up to a black guy and stabs that black guy. Then imagine, if you will, that when that white guy who stabbed the black guy was in a trial to be convicted of second-degree assault, or whatever the charge specifically is, depending on the jurisdiction, the jury says, actually, not guilty. We're going to acquit this person. Why? Because the black guy called the white guy a cracker after he was stabbed. Okay? In your head, in your mind, you think, that's insane. The race of these two individuals completely doesn't matter at all, but the fact that the jury would acquit somebody because of something they allegedly said, the victim said after they was stabbed, that's crazy. That is Crazyville. Well, welcome to Crazyville, where the exact opposite thing happened. And I just wanted to put that in terms of the opposites because we all together understand, hey, stabbing somebody is bad. Doesn't matter what the race of the victim is. Doesn't matter the race of the perpetrator. Stabbing people is bad. But the exact opposite thing happened in Portland. A black dude walked up to a white guy, stabbed him, admitted to stabbing him, and then allegedly, well, actually the white guy confessed to it. The white guy, after being stabbed, drops an N-bomb, and the jury in Portland acquits the guy who stabbed the dude because racial insensitivity. In Portland, Oregon, Gary Edwards, 43, was acquitted of second-degree assault charges on October 31st. The case involved Edwards, the black guy, stabbing Gregory Howard, a white guy, on July 7th. Both men involved in the incident are homeless and have lengthy criminal records. There's the third twist of going, okay, well, this is homeless people. This is kind of just, not this is kind of what happens, but this is not exactly shocking or surprising. Transit camera footage captured Edwards approaching Howard from behind while holding a fixed blade knife. Where have we seen that? homeless ne'er-do-well approaching somebody with a knife. That's not something that we want to be commonplace here in the United States of America. Howard, who is the white guy in question, jumped up, pushed Edwards when he noticed him, leading to a brief scuffle against a wall before Edwards stabbed Howard in the shoulder. The video from the transit footage has no audio, so that's, I guess, quote unquote, the dispute. Edwards, the black guy who did the stabbing, admitted to stabbing Howard, but he claims it was in self-defense after Howard used racial slurs. Okay, I'm not entirely sure how threatened your physical being is if somebody says that, and that's all alleged, by the way. Howard, for his part, says, no, I said it after he stabbed me, which is the main thing here, getting stabbed. Edwards' attorney told the jury that his client, so the guy the stabber, simply approached Howard to see if he'd be willing to trade the knife that he had in his hand for some cigarettes. That's all that was happening. Guy approaches you with a knife in like a public transit setting, says, "Hey, no, I'm not trying to stab you. I just want to see if you would like to trade this knife that I have for some cigarettes." This is totally normal thing that happens all the time. Prosecutors argued correctly that, none of the things that transpired afterward are relevant at all to the situation. The prosecutor says the stabber, the guy with the knife, was in total control and wasn't scared. He didn't retreat. He sauntered up and then sauntered away after he stabbed someone. The defendant created the situation. The police body cam footage, however, captured Howard, the stabbee, calling Edwards, the stabber, the N-word after the cops arrived. So after he was stabbed, dude who gets stabbed drops an N-bomb. And therefore, the jury says, no, this is probably pretty racially motivated, because the guy used a racial slur after he was stabbed. And therefore, we're going to go ahead and say, clear of all charges. The stabber, Edwards, I'm using stabber and stabbee because the names are kind of not exactly easy to follow. The stabber, and this is going to shock you folks, was previously convicted on several attempts of second-degree assault in 2021, was sentenced to 3 years in prison for a separate stabbing in Portland's light rail on May 2020. Edwards was also accused of fourth-degree assault over a store clerk, but that case was dismissed in June due to a lack of availability for public defenders. In other words, long history of long criminal record, criminal history. I know that's shocking to each and every one of you, but who could have seen that coming? The bottom line here is this. Yes, we have the best and most fair judicial system. Are there some flaws in it? Not flaws in the actual system itself, but does it, sometimes go a direction that we don't think it's going to go? Yeah, but it's also as good as a judicial system can get here in the United States of America. This incident, though, seems to be a case in which the jury got it entirely wrong. If all of the evidence seems to be true and the reporting on it seems to be pretty concrete, a black dude stabbed a white guy, and again, to me, the races of the individuals don't matter. Stabbing someone is bad, regardless of who's doing it. A black guy stabs a white guy. The white guy then drops an N-bomb, a racial slur, and the jury says, well, what are you going to do? He experienced racism after he stabbed that guy, so therefore, second-degree assault charges, completely, you're acquitted of all of those. I'll tell you what, I get stabbed, I'm calling you all the words. Every single one of them. I don't even care what race you are. I'm all of the derogatory pejoratives that can be used, I'm using them. I don't know if that's controversial. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for that. I'm just stating it as fact. I get stabbed with someone trying to trade his knife for cigarettes. I'm throwing them all out there. Every word in the book. At least that is what I think that my flesh will try and do. Hopefully, my more restrained Christian morality will take over and I will not use any bad words. I will simply call the police and run away. But who knows? I'm thinking out loud here. If I were to be stabbed, all the words are coming out. I don't care who you are, what you look like. I'm using all of them. I hate to laugh at this because this is just so disgusting and terrible, but that seems to be the case. So that's that. You can find that article at the New York Post. It was actually fascinating reading, something that unfortunately we should all be concerned of happening where we live. Now, we do have a piece of good news coming up. Ed Bombas, the 88-year-old veteran who we all helped raise money for. I mean, obviously that GoFundMe was already happening, but several of you emailed for the link to that. He was presented with his check. That is a heartwarming video that you're not going to want to miss after the break, as well as the mailbag segment, tpt@tpusa.com. If you'd like to be included in the mailbag segment, what are your thoughts about people of different races calling people racial epithets, therefore being acquitted of stabbing them? Is that a good idea? Is that a good thing that this is happening in our judicial system, especially in the woke crazyville that is Portland? My guess is probably no, but if you have any thoughts, tpt@tpusa.com. We will be right back after the break. Don't go away.
Look at that.
All right, let's go. Oh, a mini one.
A little mini.
My first mini.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Oh, that's good.
All right, so Katy Perry and her immigrant boyfriend Justin Trudeau, who, by the way, should be deported, have announced that they are actually a couple. They took to Instagram over the weekend to say, yes, we are a couple. Now, while a bunch of you are probably rolling your eyes saying, why are you talking about this? This doesn't matter. One, you should be warned. We talk about pop culture on this show, probably more than any other show on Real America's Voice, and I take pride in that. We like pop culture because culture is indicative of where the politics are going, so we want to be specifically attuned to that. But two, and I think this is more important. Yes, of course we should deport Justin Trudeau for the sole fact that he's in our country dating our pop stars. But also, Katy Perry actually has a decent track record of turning her boyfriends, significant others, ex-husbands, quite conservative. I think the best outcome that we can hope for is that Justin Trudeau dates Katy Perry, recognizes, holy cow, this woke crap is nuts, and then turns a corner and goes full Russell Brand. Because remember, Russell Brand, Katy Perry were married for a time. He is now one of the more based people on the internet, which is a good thing. We can only hope together that Justin Trudeau will suffer the same fate after his inevitable breakup from the American pop star. So that is what I'm optimistic about. That's what I'm hoping for in this particular scenario. That is, of course, if he doesn't get deported before that. Let us know, tpt@tpusa.com. Does Trudeau have a chance at being conservatized, as happens to be the case for people who date Katy Perry? I think Orlando Bloom was her last long. I wonder where he's at politically. Let us know if you know, tpt@tpusa.com. Is Orlando Bloom also kind of based now? If that's the case, then we should send all of the dudes to date Katy Perry so that they can end up becoming conservatives. The heartwarming story. Last week, we shared a video of a guy in a grocery store who was talking to an 88-year-old U.S. Army veteran who was working 40 hours a week. At 88 years old, said, I can't retire because my pension was gone with the company that he worked for. Took away his pension. His wife got sick. He went into a ton of debt to try and get his wife healthy. She ended up passing, unfortunately. The internet rallied together to raise money for this guy. There were some people that emailed for the link saying, hey, you should try Give, Send, Go. This wasn't our thing. This was just a GoFundMe thing. This was the thing that we were tacking on to. It wasn't, our own thing, or else, of course, we would have set it up with Give, Send, Go instead of GoFundMe. Anyways, this is the conclusion of that video. I'm sure lots of you are going to want to see. This is Ed Bombas, who received a sizable check, and this is the video of him getting that. Grab some tissue if your eyes are going to get watery. Play this, cut 12.
Ed, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. How have you been?
Oh, pretty good today.
Yeah? What did you do with that money I gave you?
I still have it in my pocket. I wasn't sure this was a legitimate situation.
There was a few things you didn't tell me when you first met me about the amount of debt you're in.
Approximately $225,000, $30,000. Money all went to take care of my wife.
And you miss her?
Oh, yeah. My brother's got cancer, so is his wife.
Why haven't you seen him?
Be able to afford to fund
I
it.
want to reveal that this is one of the largest individual fundraisers in GoFundMe history. If you want, you will be able to retire because we've raised you $1.77 million.
Something that dreams are made out of, trust me.
Yeah, $1.77 million. The people of this country raised for a guy who served this country and is in a tough spot. That is exactly the type of thing that I would be willing to give money to, and I did give money to, and several of you gave money to. No, we don't want to see a welfare system that is overburdened by people who are only and solely trying to scam and defraud that welfare system. But this type of thing is exactly the type of thing that pretty much every American can get behind. If only this were the case entirely. Individual Americans saying, I'm in a tough spot, but this is what I got to do. Showing up to work 40 hours a week at 88 years old, U.S. veteran, but saying, look, this is my lot. This is definitely tough objectively, but this is how it has to be. I am 100% willing to support people like that, not the type of people who milk the system for the sole sake of wanting to milk the system and are unwilling to effectively do the harder things in life. That is a great, heartwarming story. Thank you to any of you who emailed the show looking for that link last week. Great end to a fantastic story, and not an end necessarily, just a great chapter. Hopefully Ed can retire gracefully now with $1.5 million. That seems pretty good. Coming up next year, we're going to get to our mailbag, tpt@tpusa.com. Send along an email. If your email is bigoted, horrible, disgusting, vile, actually, the chances go up of us reading it here on the show. tpt@tpusa.com. If you'd like to send along your thoughts, comments, concerns, even criticisms, also go subscribe to our YouTube channel where you get an exclusive segment of the show each and every day that we don't have time to fit here on Real America's Voice. Do it now. We will be right back. Don't go away.
Here's the story about a little guy that lives in a blue world, and all day and all night, and everything he sees is just blue, like him inside and outside. Blue his house with the blue little window and a blue Corvette, and everything is blue for him.
All right, I get it. I get it. Yeah, this is the song from early 2000s about being blue, and that guy has everything is blue. I get it. That's funny. Great. All right, time to get yes, that's funny. That's internet explained in one 15-second video. Let's get to some emails on the topic of the J6 bomber that was caught that is not fitting any of the narratives that the libs want it to fit, at least thus far. Tommy said this: I have a theory about why the Biden administration didn't go after the bomber. It would blow up their theory about white supremacy. Correct. Very simply put, very eloquently put, I think that is exactly why the Biden administration was not able to track down this guy, which they had a ton of information on, ton of evidence for, and the Trump administration was. Oh, hey, Mr. Biden, Mr. President, this might not further the narrative that you've been saying all along is his greatest threat to this country is white supremacy. Turns out you're not gonna like this. This is a black guy, so maybe that's why. Tommy, I think you're correct. Also, Anonymous weighing in, don't let the wackadoodles on the left sell the bill of goods as saying that this guy was a lone wolf, interestingly enough. Thank you for what you do. Keep on doing it every day. I'm super curious to see how this all pans out. I'm curious about the trial, and I'm super curious to see if this dude was entirely acting on his own. I don't know. We'll see what happens. TPT@tpusa.com if there's an email that you'd like to send in on the topic of On topic of the R word, John says this, I can't take it. I have tears rolling down my cheeks. My belly hurts really bad right now from laughing so hard about the R family. It's actually the W family, John. The Walls family, that's who we're talking about. Not sure who the R family is. I get it. Okay, I know what you're saying. The governor that the president of the United States called retarded. That's who you're talking about. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it's tough to not make jokes here, but you know, is what it is. Of course you're going to make jokes. TBT@tbsa.com is the email. I know I've said that about a bajillion times, but love hearing your thoughts. The online internet mail system. Why? Just email. Everybody knows what email is. Clay, on the topic that we discussed last week, I think this was Friday's show, which I know a lot of you are already into the weekend doing a bunch of fun things, but go check out, I believe it was segment 4 from last week. I think it was Friday, where there are U.S. companies that are refusing to hire Americans in their job listings. They post a job listing to Glassdoor or LinkedIn saying, we don't want Americans. That's the only thing that we can't have is American citizens doing this job. Clay says this, relatively obvious but good point. If a company is hiring no Americans, we Americans must boycott their products. Please list companies that advertise their wish to only hire non-Americans, and then basically, yeah, we won't support them. How about we support companies exclusively who say, hey, we're going to exclusively hire Americans? That's kind of a no-brainer. It really shouldn't be like that big of an issue. It shouldn't be a problem saying, hey, we want to hire Americans because, I don't know, we are Americans ourselves as a company. And if you're a company that wants to hire non-Americans, go be a non-American company. Go do your business somewhere else. Go to the country that you're hiring people from and sell your product there. My guess is that because, for lots of other reasons, that country won't be able to afford your product. So make sure you hire American. That's going to do it for us here at Turning Point tonight. TBT is the email at tbusa.com, tbt@tbusa.com. Also go subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rumble, X, all of the social media accounts. Just type in JOBOB. You'll be able to find us pretty much anywhere. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. God bless America. I got chased by a pit bull today. So there's that. One last point. There's a bunch of things that I want to talk about on this one last point segment, and all of those things took a back seat to my experience this morning on a run, literally getting chased by a pit bull. And I thankfully, for my sake, it was like a stocky, it was clearly a pit bull. I saw its face. It was like a stocky, not as in great shape as you might think, pit bull. But nevertheless, I was on a run and I saw something moving in the bushes. And then I was probably 20 feet away and this pit bull just comes out, dog comes out and just starts looking at me. I'm like, all right, here we go. Go off the sidewalk through some of the parkway grass at the area that I was running in onto the street, thinking maybe if I just take a long way around, I can't turn around. It's not going to work. Maybe if I go a long way around, this dog will just kind of all right, see what happens. See ya. Not the case. Dog kind of saunters over to me and then starts running at me. And then I'm now running further into the street, which is my back is towards traffic, which generally I wouldn't do if I'm running on the street, because I know a bunch of runners will be like, you should never run with traffic, always run against it so you can see the cars coming. Yes, but I was on the sidewalk with a parkway in between, so that's why I was on that side of the street. Anyways, now I'm running into traffic, so that's not good. Realize, okay, I probably, whatever biting the dog may or may not do to me it's going to be worse if I get hit by a bus. So then I come back onto the sidewalk, and now I'm in a full-blown sprint up a hill, getting chased by a pit bull. And the only reason I say that is because as I'm running, I'm thinking in my head, Matt Walsh has been on this for a year now, saying that pit bulls no good. Now, I'm sure that we're going to get a ton of emails and a ton of comments like, oh, I have a pit bull. It's fine. Yeah, look, dogs that are known to be aggressive, what good are you doing having those in your house? Again, Matt's much more fervent on this. He's much more brash about banning pit bulls. But man, yeah, of course. Like I look at the dog and I think, yeah, this dog's gonna chase me. I start sprinting up the hill. Thankfully, I was able to outrun it. Also, thankfully, there was a police officer that was driving up the hill at the same time. He flipped on his sirens and kind of like pulled in front of me and like rolled down his windows. Like, do you need to get into the back seat? And then, of course, I screamed, like, oh, no, ICE, I'm an American citizen. No, of course, that's not what I said. I said, I thankfully had outrun it at this point. I'm like, I'm good, but thank you. But then, so this dog, if you buried the lead here, dog was off leash, no collar. Okay. And I don't want to disparage the police officer because I know he was looking out for my best interest. But after I'm running away from this pit bull, I say, I'm good, thanks. I'm still running pretty hard up the hill. I'm turning around. Dog is effectively slowed down and stopped behind me. Police officer says, you need a ride? You good? I'm like, I'm good, thank you. Appreciate it. He then drives away. Like, dude, there's a pit bull on the loose that's chasing people around the streets here. I don't know what's in your purview here, but maybe, I don't know, shoot it. Producer Glenn didn't like that. This is what I'm thinking in this moment, man. Like I'm thinking, am I gonna have to kick this thing? I don't know what's happening. Not advocating for just randomly shooting dogs. That's not what I'm saying. But he went, yeah. Thankfully, when I came back around, which is probably half an hour later, because I got to go down that same street, the pit bull was not there, even though I was wired. I was like, oh, head on a swivel. Where's this thing? It wasn't there. So maybe I'm going to give the police officer the benefit of the doubt that he drove away and then called animal control. And then, they took care of the problem. But I don't know. It was a harrowing experience. One kind of says something to the culture of the area that I live in. I live in Southern California, and without getting too stereotypical here, a lot of wandering dogs around the area that I live. A lot of them. We saw a dog at the park one time, just no leash, no owner, nowhere in sight. Corral the dog, bring it back to where we think it came from, and the owner says, "Oh no, this doggy loves the park." You can just let your dog out of your house to go to the park across the street. That's not how any of this works. It's not a dog park. It's not enclosed. Producer Glenn can't hold his tongue anymore.
I have opinions. I have opinions about this. Is
this going to be the first one last point where Producer Glenn and Joe Bob fight? By the way, the host is always right.
The host is always right. The boss is always right. But I may be disagreeing with Matt Walsh. So sorry, Matt. I do like you, but I feel like it's in principle, animals that are aggressive should be treated differently than animals that are not. But I think in particular cases, you should give your pit bull every chance to succeed in our world by training it well. Like, if you are the owner of that dog, give it a yard to play in with fences that it can't get out of. Don't let it run loose like your friend in the park there. No, it's not your friend. You just said it was a random stranger. But those aren't great ways to care for animals in the modern world. This isn't the 1800s where everyone knows everyone and everyone's pet is obvious. It's a strange dog. You can't always assume the best intentions. And, one wrong assumption by you could be the difference between getting home and filming the show later or going to the hospital, right? Like, that could be very dangerous. So you have to be cautious. But I feel like, for the sake of the animal, we're compassionate people. We live in a society that tries to take care of animals. I think on large, not everyone, but most would rather see that animal living in a safe place and well trained. So that's on the owner. I feel like that's a problem with the owner, not the animal for just being an animal.
I 100% agree. The problem lies in, at what point is there a breaking point where the threshold has been crossed to that too many people who own pit bulls aren't doing all the things that owners should do? And it's like owning a pit bull is not a constitutional amendment. So you can say, all right, you don't get this anymore. This is not, we do it to a certain extent with other things that you're just not allowed to have because
there are animals that are illegal to own. And, theoretically they could say, well, this breed of dog is now on that list.
Yeah. And I don't want to misquote any of the statistics, but Matt makes a pretty compelling case. And also too, I look at this too from a like, thankfully I was running by myself. If we were on a family walk where I've got 2 kids, a toddler and an infant and a wife, I'm doing some bad things to that dog. I recognize that you take from that what you will. That's what I'm doing as a father trying to protect, because you don't know. And we were out walking yesterday, and there's a bunch of dogs that were off leash, and I carried the 2-year-old because I don't know, you don't know. Some lady even said, like, or you don't worry about the dog. I don't trust you. Like, you've got a big dog, I've got a small child. Like, oh yeah, your dog's off leash. I get it. This area, I'm not, I'm not out there saying, hey, you got to leash your pet in this area, because, we were visitors and that's kind of the culture there, and that's fine. We're up in Santa Barbara, and bunch of people are, my dog's fine. That's fine. I can see that you think that. I don't trust you. I don't know you. I don't know your dog. I don't know any of these things. And my priority is keeping the kids safe.
Even if that dog is fine. So here's the thing. Like I've mentioned before on One Last Points, I'm a cat guy. I have 4 cats. I love them. I never thought I'd love cats, but I do. And some of them get a little toothy. If you play with them, they'll bite you, but it's not like an attack bite. It's more of a cats play that way. Yeah. And I know, because I felt them bite hard unintentionally, because I'm playing with them, like, anyways, and not intending to attack, but I felt the full bite, and they do a soft bite. So, okay, I can handle that. But if, like, say a friend is over with a child who says, can I pet your cat? I'll say, yes, gently, but be careful. And I wouldn't ever say, like, oh, my cat's fine. My cat is fine, but that bite for me is fine, not for a child. Like, you have to understand that. Well, I feel like as an animal owner, you need to understand not everyone looks at your dog the same way you do. Not everyone loves cats, or my cats, the same way I do. That'll always be the case.
Yeah, and it's whether or not we've crossed the threshold of, all right, people there are too many of these particular dogs that are doing too much damage to be. Like, yes, as a responsible owner, you should be doing all these things. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, I guess fortunately from a freedom standpoint, you're not required to do any of those things. But also, if other people have to pay the price for that, that's a problem in and of itself. So, what I took away is producer Glenn is pro dogs murdering people. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I took away from that. And before you have a chance to respond,
yes, I would state it differently, but sure, whatever.
Good. Here you have it. It has been one last point. Producer Glenn is pro Americans getting mauled to death by vicious dogs on their runs, enjoying themselves, enjoying a nice morning out. But that's that. A lot of, geez, yeah. I mentioned at the beginning, I have a bunch of things that I'd like to talk about on our. We took a trip up to the Santa Barbara area over the weekend and saw some boomer libs protesting on Saturday. They're basically just getting together. They were having a good time together, which at a certain point you're like, I get it. Maybe you should spend your time, I don't know, feeding the homeless, taking care of other things that are actually important to society. But you know what? They are just having a good time. Maybe we'll talk about all of that a little bit more, or a little bit later on a future edition of One Last Point. It has been One Last Point. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless America.